Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to return to Iceland. We're going to go to a small town called Árskógssandur, which is in the north of the country, and have a taste of a beer from Bruggsmiðjan, who actually brew the series of Kaldi beers that you'll see in the Vinbudens in Iceland. So we're going to have a taste of the Sumar Kaldi, which is a German style Hefeweizen beer. And what's interesting about this brewery is that they're based in a very remote place in Iceland, but they like to brew Czech style beers, so really quite a cool brewery actually. I've tried some of their stuff on tap and it is very, very nice. So as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. It will only be a minute or two, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews that hopefully I can add from Bruggsmiðjan in the fairly near future. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the brewery, Bruggsmiðjan, as I said to you, are from Árskógssandur in the north of Iceland, and they're on the coast of the Eyjafjord, which is the longest fjord in Iceland. The second city of Iceland, which is Akureyri, is at the bottom of this fjord, and there's actually a really nice bar there called Blakanan, which they actually serve all of these beers on tap from Kaldi. So if you do find yourself in Iceland, go and check out Blakanan in Akureyri. Very, very nice little bar, and they do have other craft beers there as well, so it's a nice little random kind of craft beer bar in Iceland. And Iceland honestly is a very, very beautiful country, so if you do ever get the chance to go and visit it, do it. Drive the ring road and see the beautiful countryside that is there. It's a really kind of it's a really awesome place. There's no other way to describe it, and the people are very, very nice. But anyway, Bruggsmiðjan was actually founded by husband and wife Olafur Thorstur Olafsson and Agnes Sigurdardóttir in 2005. Apologies if any of my Icelandic pronunciations are wrong, by the way. But apparently Agnes had seen a report on TV about the many small breweries that were starting up in Denmark, and the next week she and Olafur actually went to Denmark to visit some of these breweries, and they found some investors upon their return to Iceland, and they helped them start up the brewery. So there's an investment team of 12 people who own 44% of Bruggsmiðjan, while Agnes and Olafur retain 56% of the ownership. But they both wanted to make beers that were very rich in taste, and they chose to hire David Massa, who is from the Czech Republic, and he'd studied brewing for 9 years. Apparently the regular study time for brewing in the Czech Republic is 4 years, so this guy David Massa was very clued up on his brewing, and this is why the Kaldi beers are actually very, very nice. But all of the ingredients for the beer are sourced from the Czech Republic, except of course for the water, which comes from the local area. The water in Iceland is very, very pure, and initially the brewery was producing 170,000 litres of beer per year, but recently they added a few more tanks, and this took production up to 300,000 litres of beer per year. So a very, very cool brewery, and as I say, a kind of typically Icelandic brewery in the middle of nowhere that brews Czech style beer, so very, very unusual in that way. And when I was at Blakanan in Akureyri, that was where I first tried the Kaldi beer, and the dark beer for me was the best beer that they do. I never got to try this one because it was the wrong season for it, I believe. I think this is their sort of spring seasonal beer, but correct me on that if I'm wrong. But the dark beer was really awesome on tap. Just to list the other beers that you can actually get from these guys, you get the Gullfoss, which I believe is, I think that might be the mountain that the water comes down in the local area. That's mentioned in the Einstuk brewery when you go and have a read about them. But they also have the Kaldi, which is the regular Pilsen style, Kaldi Dark, which as I say is beautiful, and they also have Kaldi Light, and then this guy is one of the seasonal beers as well. And I'm not sure how easy it is to get this one anymore, or if you even can get it, but this is one of the seasonal beers. And as I say, it's a Weizen beer. So to tell you about this beer itself, it's a 4.6% Weizen. On the back it has some things in Icelandic. It just I think it basically just says it does Czech ingredients, and it tells you a best buy date or best drink by date. But yeah, I'll just bring out the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork on that. But it's a 4.6% Weizen, and that's the main thing. All the Kaldi beers have a very similar style of artwork. They're all just a different kind of colour scheme, but they're very nicely presented, very kind of modern, if you like, but at the same time they have that sort of, they're modern, but they have that kind of classic style of German or Bohemian sort of artwork on them. So I think they've done that very, very well, and this is the typical Kaldi bottle cap there. You can see that, and it just has the nice little horse there, Bruggsmiðjan, specially brewed beer, I guess, artisanally brewed beer. But yeah, 330ml bottle, 4.6% Weizen beer. So let's get this guy out and into the glass. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening, a little bit of bubble just coming out of it there. As you pour it, you can really smell there's quite a bit of citrusy fruit coming off this one. I've just watched that I don't get too big a head on this guy. That can always be a problem when you want to do beer reviews. I'll just let it settle just now. We've got enough to have a nice little look at the colour of this guy. As you can see, there's a massive head on that. If I bring the light up and just let you see the colour of this beer, as you can see, it's a quite opaque, very rich kind of, it's almost like a kind of rich orangey caramel colour. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see that it's quite it's not even transparent in the slightest. There's a good bit of sediment just come out to the bottom of there, so that's just because I've had it in the fridge, I would think. But the head on this guy is very white, not even creamy coloured, very frothy and white. There is a bit of bumpiness around the edges of it, but overall very frothy and white, not transparent in the slightest, like I say. There is a little bit of carbonation just going up towards the bottom of the head there, but it looks very, very nice beer. As I say, a little bit of sediment, actually quite a few, just very little particles floating around. So let's get the last of this guy in, and then we can have a look at the aroma. But the first thing you will notice when this beer, when you pour it, is it's a very sweet smelling beer actually. You can really smell the kind of tarty, slightly citrusy fruits and the grassy hops coming off this beer. But it smells very, very tarty, and it's got a very kind of sweet, bready and yeasty aromas coming off this guy. So we'll sugar it up and have a better look at it. But yeah, a big bready and yeasty note, but very, very sharp citrusy note coming off this one, I think. But if you let it sit still, you get a bit more of the kind of sweet yeasty character coming out. If you sugar it up like this, that's when you start to get a little bit more of the kind of grassy and citrusy hop that you really expect from the style. And it is actually quite a tart smell, like I say. But you've got a big bready and yeasty note. And you can pick up the wheat in there as well. The wheat's actually a nice, quite mild wheat. It's really a big bready and yeasty character you're getting out of this guy. And you can pick up a little bit of the clove spice. But one thing I'm actually noticing you can smell about this beer is the mineral coming out of the beer. In Iceland you always notice this, and you do notice it with Scottish beer as well. You get a real mineral taste with the water, and it can really add another dimension to the beer. Some beer reviewers will disagree with what I'm saying there, but I'm certain it's just because I drink whiskey and stuff as well. The water does actually have a big impact on the kind of taste of beer, in my opinion. And you can taste it when you try like English beer in comparison to Scottish beer, I think. The water really adds another dimension to the beer, I reckon. But yeah, a nice sharp citrusy and grassy hop coming off the top of this. But you can pick up a little bit of caramel sweetness, maybe just a little bit underneath this. But the main components are the very sharp grassy and citrusy hop. And underneath you've just got a nice big bready and yeasty and wheaty note in there. The wheat's very mild and just adds another dimension to it. But it's a big, sweet, bready and yeasty character in there. So without further ado, let's get on and have a taste of this guy. So this is the Sumar Kaldi, which is a German Hefeweizen, 4.6% from Bruggsmiðjan in Árskógssandur in Iceland. Slange. Yeah, really nice actually. Not quite as pungent on the citrus as you would expect from the aroma. But yeah, it's much like the nose actually. You've got a nice wheat and yeasty flavour in there. As you move into the aftertaste, you just get a nice blanket of that, but it does have a very nice yeasty sweetness to it. That's one of the most interesting kind of yeasty sweetnesses I've had. And as I say, I think they're probably using Czech yeast in this one. So in a way, this guy actually tastes like a German Weizen. I'm not sure how common it is to find the Weizen beer in the Czech Republic, but it's interesting to have a German style beer, if you like, brewed with a Czech yeast. It's really quite interesting, and you can definitely pick that up from the flavour of this beer. But yeah, over the middle of the tongue you just get a nice blanket of a white sort of bready character, and in the middle you get that sweet yeasty element, and there is just the wheat kind of mixing in with that. It's a really nice, really interesting beer actually. There's just that malt character is interesting because there is a definite difference in the taste in my opinion. That must be that they're using a Czech yeast strain for that. So it's a really interesting malt base to this beer, I reckon. Yeah, there's not even, I was expecting a little bit of caramelly sweetness in this actually from the aroma, but there's none of that. As I say, it's just a blanket of white bready character and a nice sweet yeasty flavour that goes around the kind of middle in a circle of the tongue, and then you've got a wheat sort of, just a nice mild wheat flavour that just goes over the top of that. There's a little bit of wheat spice in there too. It's really quite nice. It's just a very interesting malt forward beer. Around the edges of the tongue you're starting to get the kind of grassy hop and a little bit of the citrusy element that is typical of the Hefeweizen style of beer. You get a little bit of juicy character that just builds behind the tongue there, and that's where you're getting a lot of the kind of lemony citrus, and around the edges of the tongue it's a grassy, maybe slightly aromatic-y hop flavour you're getting out of this. I would be interested to know what kind of hops they use in this beer. I do wonder if they're using Czech Sats and things like that. It will be Czech hops of some description, but I'd be interested to go and to know what hops are in it and go and have a read up on it, as I usually do before some of these beer reviews. But it's a really nice beer, and you can really taste the mineral of the you can really taste the minerals of the beer in this one as well, and the minerals of water. It really, as I say, it adds another dimension to the flavour of the beer, and you will notice that with Icelandic beer. It's got all the typical elements you expect of the flavour, and then it's just got this other thing that's to do with the high mineral content in the water up there, and it adds another really cool portion to the flavour of the beer. But yeah, like I say, the flavour of this one is really interesting. A nice light bready blanket over the middle of the tongue, a sweet yeasty character that goes on top of that, and some nice sort of wheaty, a mild wheaty element in there, and some clove spice. It's a really interesting beer, a German style beer brewed with a Czech style of yeast, so really interesting. A little bit of a bubble at the behind the front of the tongue there, that's where you get a lot of the lemony citrus coming out, and around the edges of the palate that's where you're getting the nice mild grassy hop flavours with a little bit of aromaticness. You're getting a bit of dryness at the back sides of the tongue there. In terms of the mouthfeel with this guy, it's mid-bodied, I'd say. It does feel a little bit heavier, and I think that's the minerals in the water that make it feel just that little bit heavier, or it could just be that the yeasty characters are quite big in this one, and I would say that they do make the beer feel sort of mid-bodied in this one, but it's got a moderate carbonation that helps bring out the hoppy elements of the beer, but there's a big sweet yeasty malt base in there, as I say, and you've got a sharper element to the hops that just comes out with that juicy bubble. But in the aftertaste of the beer, it's more of a dryness you're getting around the edge of the tongue, and on the front of the tongue too. There's not too much of a sweetness lingering in the flavour. It's more of a hoppy element, but you can get just a little bit of that yeasty element to the malt base just in the middle of the tongue. But the main component of the aftertaste on this one really is the hops. So yeah, overall it's a really nice, it's a very interesting Weizen beer. So if you are interested in the style and interested in Icelandic beer, then this is a good place for you to start. There are other ones like the Geidinger Fætibjór as well, so there's a good variety of Weizen beers in Iceland, but this is a really nice one, I have to admit. And Hefeweizen, I'm quite big on Hefeweizen since I went to Germany, and this really does stand up with those beers, and it's different, as I say, because of the Czech yeast strain that they've put into this beer. So definitely give it a go if you're interested in Icelandic beer and Hefeweizens. It's really nice, and I would recommend you check out Bruggsmiðjan in general, because as I say, the dark beer is really nice also. So go and check them out. Go and check out Black Cannon in Akureyri, and go and visit the brewery. They do a lot of tours as well, so check out the brewery website. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As I say, go and check out Bruggsmiðjan from Árskógssandur in the north of Iceland. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it before, and I will be back with more Icelandic beer reviews. But in the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you soon with more reviews, and there will be more Icelandic ones, like I say. Skál!